Hello, my beautiful friends. Nintendo has posted its beautiful financial results. They do this quarterly, but this is the kind of the big one. This is I mean, it's the last report before the Switch 2, but then it is also representing the entire last fiscal year, which ended in March. So essentially, this is one of the big yearly ones. And because we're at the end of the generation and there haven't been like a lot of really huge game releases, obviously it's not like the most interesting financial result stuff. But it's still good. And instead of kind of breaking it down into multiple videos or whatever, I figure we'll just do this. I'm just here. We'll just go over right now. I would zoom in more, but I don't know what I can't get rid of this white box. I just can't. It's like I just can't. Okay, so whatever. This is it. So yeah, we'll just kind of go down. Just kind of go down and take a look. So pretty much across the board, we're seeing a drop in sales and profits, but of course that's completely to be expected. Again, there weren't like a lot of really big, huge releases. It's the end of the generation. Console sales are finally dipping. So yeah, net sales decreased by 30.3% year on year, versus last year. Operating profit decreased 46.6%. Ordinary profit decreased by 45.3%. So yeah, some decently dramatic drops across the board, but it's to be expected. Game sales decreased by 30.9% year on year. Mobile and IP related income fell 27%. So that makes sense. Yeah, mainly because, that one specifically, mobile and IP related income, everything that is not video games, of course, like the Mario movie was a huge thing. So you're gonna see a really big drop after that whole thing is done. That's kind of cool. We get a little pie chart for like the different regions. Proportion of sales outside of Japan, 76. So yeah, wow. Japan makes up almost a quarter of their total sales. Wow, that's interesting. Wow, it even gives the effect of changes in foreign exchange rates on net sales. Plus 43.3 billion yen. That's really interesting. This is cool. Numbers are cool. They say naturally, with the decrease in net sales, gross profit declined by 25.6% year on year to 710.1 billion yen. And this is really interesting right here. Although there was a decline in the proportion of first-party software sales, the gross profit margin increased by 3.9 points year on year to 61% due to factors including an increase in proportion of digital sales and a decline in the proportion of sales for Nintendo Switch OLED model, which has a lower profit margin compared to the other models. So the profit margin is like how much you make on a product, after all of your expenses. And so apparently they had a small increase in their profit margins, partially because of just for whatever reason, digital sales overall has kind of been increasing, but it's not necessarily like completely linear, and there are trends here and there. But apparently enough people bought digital, which has a much, much higher profit margin on a digital sale. So that kind of increased it. And then fewer people are buying Switch OLEDs, and that system itself just has a lower profit margin compared to a base model Switch and a Switch Lite. Nintendo just makes less money on those systems. So because that is the more expensive system, and because the Switch 2 is coming, fewer people have been buying it versus base model Switch and Switch Lite. And so therefore their overall profit margin has increased. I think that is fascinating somehow. That's really interesting. I didn't know that their profit margin was lower on Switch OLED. They make more money when you buy one of the other Switches. I don't know, it's cool. Now, these reports are really interesting because they will also go over their expenses, so like how much they are spending on this stuff. And this is really cool. Leading up to a console launch, you would think that their spending would be a lot higher because of all of like the really aggressive development on all these games and the bigger budgets of the games and all the marketing and R&D and all that stuff. But apparently their administrative expenses only increased by 0.5% versus last year. And here it cites a decrease in advertising expenses, which makes sense. At the end of the Switch generation, they just don't need to spend as much marketing the Switch. They'd rather just like save their money there for the Switch 2. Obviously, they're going to spend a lot on marketing this fiscal year. But yeah, the previous one, they kind of offset some of their expenses by not spending as much on marketing, and especially without as many humongous games to market. You know, a new Mario game comes out, they're going to spend like $1 trillion plastering it on billboards and stuff. They didn't really have much of a need for like very aggressive marketing within the last year. Yeah, which allowed them to increase personnel and R&D and expenses and whatnot. And it also cites the rise in yen equivalent foreign currency expenses, weakness of the yen and all that stuff. So that's another kind of a interesting little tidbit there. Despite being interested in this stuff, I'm not super knowledgeable about like the different types of profit. Ordinary? I know like gross and net. What is ordinary profit and net? I don't know, whatever. But ordinary profit declined by 45.3% year on year. Yada yada. Same old story. And then, yeah, so that's how much money they made. And so now they're looking at their forecast, how much they expect to sell. And this is a really nice little comparison here. Is the actual fiscal year that we just saw, and then the 2026 fiscal year forecast. And, they're expecting a naturally pretty good increase, 63.1% increase in net sales, 13.3% increase in operating profit, 2.1% increase in ordinary profit, 7.6% increase in net profit, and they even go into like share dividends and all that. That's interesting. So naturally, they're expecting to make a lot more money this upcoming fiscal year, and obviously I can't blame them. I think that's probably a pretty good estimate. And here we're getting into some good hard numbers. Basically, they are estimating that for the next full fiscal year, they will sell 15 million units of the Nintendo Switch 2. So basically, by the end of March next year, 2026, they expect to sell 15 million units of the Switch 2. Which is, obviously it's a pretty darn good start, especially if there end up being like stock problems and pricing problems and tariffs and whatnot. Then yeah, that could be a thing. But however you look at it, 15 million units in the first year would be pretty darn good, depending on how many of those sell in the first month or whatever. We really could be looking at the fastest selling video game console of all time. It is possible. Yeah, outsell the Wii U in a single year. That would be a real thing. Yeah, and they're estimating software sales of 45 million units. And as for the original Switch, they are forecasting hardware sales of 4.5 million units and software sales of 105 million units. And that's interesting. Later on, they kind of mention how apparently, the Switch has sold over 150 million. It's like 152 or 153. But that is not necessarily sell through. They kind of revealed that the number of units actually in people's hands is not quite 150. So that like 152 or whatever, like that's accounting for all the units that are still in stores. So that's interesting. And then, yeah, basically, even if you do look at like the sell, not necessarily the sell through, that like 152 or 153, they're anticipating 4.5 million more. And that is a pretty dramatic decrease. It really is looking like the Switch is probably gonna just barely miss hitting the record for #1 highest selling console of all time. It's gonna be a real shame if it does, but if anything, they like to over predict this stuff. They like to appease the shareholders and make them happy and say, we're gonna make a bunch of money. If they're predicting 4.5 million units of the original Switch, I don't foresee a lot more than that. And at this point, I don't see them lowering the price of the Switch to make it like a budget console. I just don't think it's on the cards. I don't think Nintendo cares that much. But yeah, I don't know. Whatever the case, they're predicting 4.5 million units of the regular Switch. We'll see how that goes. Now we got some hard numbers on software and hardware units. Yeah, right here you can see the drop, the minus 31.2% drop in hardware sales, and you get a nice little breakdown of the Switch OLED and Switch Lite. 3 million original Switch, 5.86 million of the OLED, and then 1.95 million of the Lite. So they're all selling. They're all serving a purpose. And then, of course, the primary software to come out in the last fiscal year, you've got Mario Party Jamboree, at the very, very top, 7.48 million units, and that's a brand new game. That's a brand new game, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, still, after all these years, it is an evergreen title. It is as evergreen as a title can possibly be. As long as there are still any people at all purchasing Nintendo Switches, they will be buying Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So even on top of other brand new games, Mario Kart still was one of the best-selling games of that. That's one fiscal year. That's one. There's so many games that hope to sell that many in their lifetime, and they are seen as huge successes. So 1 year for Mario Kart. And then, yeah, we had a Nintendo Switch Sports. That's not a new game either, and yet it is still continuing to sell very, very, very well. 3.16 million units in just this last year. And then another actual brand new game, Echoes of Wisdom, 4.09 million units, which is pretty darn solid. You know, it ain't Breath of the Wild numbers. It ain't 30 million, but that's still pretty darn good. Their number of million seller titles, including some by other software publishers, 24. There are 24 Switch titles that this year sold. It's not total. Total, it's like 100 or something. There's like a Wikipedia article on it, but like just this last year, 24 different titles, 15 by Nintendo and 9 titles by other publishers sold over 1 million units. That's pretty darn good. And then here we just see more of a breakdown of the hardware sales decline and whatnot. Oh yeah, and here they've got the little descriptor. We've been talking about sell-in or unit sales to business partners, so basically to retailers. But now let's talk about sell-through. So there's a bit of a distinction there, and we have some nice info here on the sell-through. This is interesting right here. Annual playing users naturally has only gone up over time. And for the first time, we have seen a decrease. It is only very, very, very slight. It goes from 129 million to 128 million. So that means that technically, despite more sales, there was a very, very slight decrease in just the number of people playing the Switch. And as with all things, I mean, obviously it is to be expected. There was just less to play on Switch this year. However, I really just want to point out how I feel like those numbers are like really, really incredibly good. You know, like that's 128 million players are like actively playing their Switches, at least in enough of a way that Nintendo can see that they are online. You know, they are receiving data from these people. And like, I don't know, I just know that like in previous generations, I mean, like really with any console, you're going to get at least a chunk of people who buy the system and don't really end up playing it very much, kind of like, you know, kind of end up regretting. I've had plenty of friends over the years, especially with Nintendo. You know, like I hate to say it, but especially with Nintendo, friends are just like, oh, I'm gonna get one, I'm gonna get a Wii, I'm gonna get a 3DS or a DS or a 3DS, and then they do, and they're like, yeah, I don't really like this very much. So I don't know. You know, you look at the Wii, it was a big phenomenon, and there were loads of people who bought the Wii and played Wii Sports and never touched it again. And yet here with the Switch, if they've sold around 150 million units and 128 million people are like still basically playing it, I don't know. That's a lot of engagement. That's a lot of real, true, organic engagement with your platform. That seems healthy. It seems very healthy. And here's another look at some of the games that sold. Again, yeah, of course, it's a decrease, but that is to be expected. And yeah, you got Mario Party Jamboree, 7 million. Echoes of Wisdom, 3.7. Sorry, that colors are inverted. It's probably my whatever. Paper Mario, just about 2 million. Really hoping for more, but, you know, whatever. Still pretty darn good. Mario and Luigi was 1.6. Luigi's Mansion 2, 1.6. About 1 million for Donkey Kong Country Returns, which is not a ton, but, you know, it wasn't a very expensive game for them to make, was it? And those were new titles. That was all new titles that released within the last year. Previously released titles, as we saw, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sold another 6.2 million. Switch Sports, another 3.2. And then Super Mario Bros. Wonder, still 2.9. That's good to see that it's still kind of creeping its way up. Animal Crossing, another 2.5, and then another 2 million for Smash. Smash is still going strong. after all this time. And then here they kind of just highlight how well Super Mario Party Jamboree is doing. Yeah, it is selling faster than the previous ones sold on Switch, which is really saying something, because Super Mario Party sold a lot. It sold a total of 20 million units. Like that's an absolute ton. And yet after 24 weeks after release, Mario Party Jamboree versus the others has sold 7 million. It has sold more units faster than the other ones, and especially with Jamboree, Super Mario Party Jamboree Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Jamboree TV coming to Switch 2, that means that this Mario Party game is going to have legs. You know, it's new content. People are going to keep playing it. It's going to, like any Mario Party game has legs. It's like Mario Kart. It's another thing where, like, however many people are buying the system, this percentage of them are going to want to get the Mario Party. So it was very, very smart for them to release like a cross-gen title with exclusive stuff on Switch 2. Been talked about that plenty. It really is a genius move, and this game will definitely continue to sell really well. Will it beat Super Mario Party? I don't know. Or is that going to happen when they release like a dedicated, like exclusive Switch 2 Mario Party? I honestly do not know. The game is great though, so if anything, it kind of deserves to sell well. And yeah, here it talks again about digital sales. Even if digital sales overall declined 26.5%, obviously that's reflecting overall sales decline. But then it says the ratio of digital sales to total software sales increased by 3.3% to 53.3%. It's funny how often it just kind of hovers around that halfway line. Approximately, more or less, half of their audience purchases digitally, and that leads to a higher profit margin. And then just kind of a little reminder here about, we've got first-party titles for just Nintendo Switch. Obviously, Legend, ZA, and Prime Beyond are coming to Switch 2 as well. And then we've got, Tomodachi Life, Rhythm Heaven. Yeah, it's all just kind of like whatever. Would be nice, as usual, gotta say, would be nice, get some actual release dates on these things, but I guess hopefully June, hopefully next year we'll finally get some info. And yeah, here it's just a little like reminder about how the Switch 2 is coming, and here's some Switch 2 features for enjoying games and whatnot. A little reminder of the exclusive first-party software coming to Switch 2, Mario Kart, DK, etc., as well as Switch 2 Edition reminder there, and then other software from other software publishers. That is weird, though. I would have thought that Nintendo would be publishing Age of Imprisonment, right? It's the Zelda game. I know they're, like, developing it with somebody else, but wouldn't they be publishing it, though? Let me look it up. Oh, that's it. Okay, yeah. Nintendo is publishing it internationally, but in Japan, Koei Tecmo is publishing it. I don't know why. I don't know why every once in a while you have like these like second-party collaborations and they change like who is publishing. I would think that no matter what, if it's a Zelda-branded game, Nintendo would publish it everywhere. But whatever. There's some games. There's some games coming out. Oh yeah, and then talking about, the non-game stuff, expanding the IP. They'll be opening Super Nintendo World in Epic Universe Orlando very soon. Wow, that's opening in Orlando in like a couple of weeks. That's pretty cool. And then the Nintendo San Francisco store is also opening in, what's the 15th? What is it now? The 8th? Yeah, just like a few days, basically a week. So that's kind of cool. But Nintendo, how else are you raising awareness of your IPs? Well, let me answer you. We're still working on the Zelda movie. That's coming. It's not this year or next year, but the following year. And then, of course, they released the Nintendo Today app, which is meant to remind us of these various fun and delightful Nintendo IPs at basically any time. Going forward, we will continue to create points of contact with consumers by promoting various initiatives that utilize Nintendo IP in a wide range of fields. Whoa! That's a relief. And that's it. That's basically the report. The big list of the top selling Switch games, that also has updated. I'm not going to pull it up because it's not that different now. The only difference is that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has moved up a place. I believe it has switched places with Pokemon Sword and Shield, right? All right, never mind. Let's look it up. I'm here on the Nintendo website, and yeah, Mario Kart Deluxe is still up there at the top with 68 million, Animal Crossing 47, Smash 36, Breath of the Wild 32, Mario Odyssey 29, love to see it. And then, yeah, basically Pokemon Sword and Shield and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet switched places, which is really interesting. Is it really just like the market for Pokemon games is very big, but like, has it basically just topped out? Like, is it just not gonna grow anymore? Almost the exact same number, maybe even the exact same people purchased these games. I don't know. It's kind of uncanny how close that is. And you know, obviously Scarlet and Violet will probably sell a little bit more. Sword and Shield is probably stalled more, but yeah, that's still strange. And then yeah, Tears of the Kingdom is there, Super Mario Party, and New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. That is the that's the top sellers at the moment. And that is the video. That's the thing. That's the big quarterly, not even quarterly, that's the big yearly financial results. So that's fun. I like this stuff. And I also like you. Have a good day.